On July 22, 1920, the cargo ship Carol left the port of Portland in the U.S. It had 11 crew members on board. It was head towards Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. 6 months later, on January 28, 1921, the ship Carol would return to the port it departed from in the U.S. But it returned all by itself. The entire crew that was on board had vanished. 11 human beings disappeared into the depths of the sea without a trace. So without a trace, the U.S. immediately began a search and investigation. But from 1921 to this very day, the U.S. and the whole world have yet to solve the mystery or know where the entire crew went. And finally, Google find out the secret of the ship Carol A. Deering and where the crew of 11 people went who disappeared without a trace. And why did the ship return all alone? And why did the U.S., after 2.5 years of searching and investigating, blow up this ship and sink it in the sea? And this incident remained an unsolved case, and to this day, the whole world still doesn't know where the crew went. 11 humans disappeared without a trace.
Rely on
Europe?
Yes.
Judging by everything,
It seems it's a radio NMT. My machine can't really get it.
yes, listen, we were in contact too, and the message went from there to Helsinki radio. I was already thinking if I should send a DS, but it arrived now, so it's apparently useless to start relaying anything forward.
The sea and oceans are very terrifying, and this is something we already knew. But what is more terrifying are the disasters that have no logical explanation. Is the thing that hurts my head the most is when something happens that has no explanation. What happened exactly? What is the explanation? There isn't one. This is the thing that tires my mind the most and gives me a headache. And this is exactly what happened in the story of a ship that went out on a sea voyage, and after a while the ship returns. But the surprise is that the ship returns alone, with no crew, no captain, and no one at all. On board, all the crew that was on the ship disappeared without a trace. And to this day, they haven't found a single accurate explanation with evidence of where the ship's crew went. This is exactly what happened to the ship Carol A. Deering. From 1920 to this day, they still don't know where the crew is. And many theories have come out, but not a single one of them has concrete evidence that gives us the location of the crew. And at the end of the video, you and I will try to think of a logical explanation. And of course, as usual, we won't rely on any imaginary explanation that has no reliable source. We will rely on anything logical and supported by a source.
Asia?
In 1920, in the month of July, and specifically in America, the ship Carol A. Deering, which was a cargo sailing ship. It was 60 meters long, and it was built in 1919 in America, and it belonged to the Deering family. The crew on board was 11 people. Its captain, William Merritt, who very strangely fell ill on the day of the voyage, and they replaced him with another captain named Willis Wormell. He was 66 years old and had 40 years of experience at sea. The journey was from America to Brazil. In July 1920, in the morning, they began loading the ship with its cargo. Things were normal, the weather was good, everything was fine. Nothing seemed strange until the ship's captain, he fell strangely ill and requested his replacement. Then they brought in another captain, Willis Wormell. When the first captain, William, was leaving the ship, he met a friend of his on the crew. He greeted him and hugged him to say goodbye, and he said a dangerous sentence to him. Then the DN, we will know this sentence later as it will help us a lot in the investigation we will do at the end of the video. The new captain arrived. The ship was fully loaded with the cargo and everything was ready to begin the journey. And indeed, at 39 minutes, the journey began. The Carol ship left the port with its crew. And this was the last departure for the crew from America, as they would never return. After some time at sea, they reached their destination, which was Brazil, specifically the port of Rio de Janeiro. There, they started offloading the ship's cargo to reload it with new cargo to take back to America. On January 28, 1921, they departed from Brazil, from Rio de Janeiro, heading toward America, heading toward EMEA. After a while in the middle of the sea, they passed in front of the North Carolina lighthouse. There, the lighthouse keeper, Thomas Jacobson, saw the Carroll ship through his binoculars. He tried to communicate with it, but there was no answer from the ship. Then he went back up the lighthouse to look again and see what was happening on the ship. While he was looking, he saw someone on the ship. He zoomed in on him and kept examining him closely. He noticed that he was not wearing the ship's crew uniform. The lighthouse keeper knew very well that every ship's crew has a specific uniform for sailing, but this person on the ship was not wearing the sailing uniform. He found it very strange, but he told himself that the crew was probably trying to rest, changing clothes, taking a shower, etc. That was the reason why this person was not wearing the crew uniform. That's how things went. On January 31, 1921, and at 36 minutes past in the morning, a ship called the Lucan Batch was passing near the shores of Cape Hastings in North Carolina. There, the crew of this ship noticed something very strange. They saw a giant sailing ship that's considered standing in a place that is not considered a port. It was standing in a normal spot by the sea where there were rocks and weeds, meaning it was an unsuitable place for a ship to anchor. This was something very strange, which made the crew head directly to this ship to find out what was happening. When they got close to it, they read the name written on it, and they found the Carroll Deering right there on the spot. They recognized it and knew it was an American ship, the one that had a journey from America to Brazil. In July, they moved even closer to it, and they discovered a serious observation. The ship was sitting by the sea, but it had not lowered its anchors. Is the crew that incompetent? They forgot an important thing like lowering the anchors. That's when they started to get suspicious. They decided to board the ship, feeling that something was wrong and the situation was sour. And on top of that, they looked it up like this. They saw that the ship's sail was unfurled, not furled. This is considered a disaster. Even if we assume the crew was incompetent and experienced and forgot to drop the anchor, they couldn't have stopped and forgotten the sail unfurled without taking it in. What you need to know is that the sail is opened when the ship wants to move at sea. That's when they open the sail so the wind pushes the ship as it goes. When it wants to stop, logically, they take the sail in like the brakes of a car, meaning literally the sail was unfurled, and the anchor wasn't dropped, which means there is only one possibility, that the ship was moving until it hit the sand and the rocks, then it stopped. And that is when the crew of the Luca ship decided to board the Carroll ship to investigate what was happening inside. As they were boarding the ship, they had only one possibility in mind. There was no second possibility and no room for excuses. The crew was likely all killed. Because at that time, sea pirates were present and they were making a lot of noise. They were doing business at sea. Any boat they saw moving in the sea, they would ambush it and take the cargo inside, and they would finish off the crew. This was very widespread. The crew boarding the ship kept going. They reached the ship and went down into it. That was when the surprise happened. They wouldn't find any traces of pirates. The ship was clean, organized in ship shape, and even the cargo was in its place. They said, "Thank God, things are fine. Now we just need to look for the crew. They are probably sleeping somewhere or something. I hope to God they are just sleeping somewhere." They started searching the rooms on the ship. The first room, they weren't there. The second, they weren't in the third. They weren't there. The restroom, they weren't there either. The situation started to get crazy. They went to the kitchen and they found something strange. They found coffee on the stove and breakfast on the table. And furthermore, nothing seemed strange. Nothing was overturned, broken, or damaged. Everything was in its exact place. Here, we would have the greatest mystery in maritime history. Where is the crew? The news was reported immediately. It reached America, and for the first time in history, all American agencies united. So the U.S. Department of State, the Coast Guard, the U.S. Navy, the FBI, and the Department of Commerce, they all united to solve the ship's mystery and to find out where the crew went. The first thing they started with was the ship itself. The first thing they noticed was that the lifeboats were missing. And even the life jackets were also missing, meaning someone used the lifeboats, got down in them, and left. The second thing, the ship was not robbed. Nothing from the ship were stolen, and even the crew's belongings were still on the ship. They went to the kitchen and actually found a breakfast on top of the table, and even the pot had coffee in it and was placed on the stove. as if the crew was planning to have breakfast and then something happened. The crew didn't eat breakfast and they left everything in its place. The third observation they would make, which was very serious. Nothing on the ship was damaged or broken, except for one place, which is the cockpit. The place where the ship's captain is. There, they would find many things broken. The compass was broken and even the navigation device was smashed. The Coast Guard and the American FBI will try to use this evidence to find a lead on where the crew is and what exactly happened to them. The first possibility they ruled out was a pirate attack, as nothing was stolen. Why would pirates attack the ship and steal the crew instead of the cargo? Meaning the pirate possibility is unlikely. They removed it from the list. Here, exactly, comes the captain who was sick and didn't travel with them, William Morris. Then he will give them a very dangerous statement where she will turn around everything our captain said to his friend in the crew when he was leaving the ship. He told him, verbatim, "I do not trust this crew. Some of them are eccentric, but work is work." Here, the American investigation will assume that some of the crew members staged a mutiny and turn against the crew, and they were the reason for the whole crew's disappearance. But this explanation is also illogical. Why would they stage a mutiny? And usually, a mutiny is for material gain, which is theft. Why didn't they steal anything? And furthermore, a mutiny involves physical resistance, meaning a struggle and fighting. Why are there no signs of any fight that took place on the ship? Nothing is broken. Nothing is overturned. Even the kitchen was tidy, clean, and in order, meaning no fight took place on the ship. So this explanation is also not correct and was removed from the list. The third explanation is the crew fleeing without explanation. Why they fled, I don't know. What made them flee? I don't know. But they fled. It's just that this explanation is also illogical to me. I'll tell you why. First of all, a person wanting to flee, at least they would finish their breakfast, even if just to have a cup of coffee or eat some eggs, well, and then flee. Why did they leave the breakfast on the table? And why was even the coffee left on the stove? And what's more, a person wanting to flee left at least take their bag, clothes, luggage, etc. Why did they leave all their belongings in their places? They didn't take anything. So even this explanation is, to me, illogical, and we will remove it from the list. A total disaster. Where did the crew go? The fourth explanation is the Bermuda Triangle, which for me is no explanation at all. They said that our ship, when it was returning to America and passed by North Carolina, changed its course there and passed through an area near the Bermuda Triangle. And there, this triangle swallowed the ship's crew and left the ship behind. Good heavens, a pathetic explanation with no evidence whatsoever. So even this explanation is nonsense to me, and we will remove it from the list. The fifth explanation is lethal natural gas. Deep in the oceans, a natural phenomenon occurs, which is poisonous gas released from the sea. They assume that this ship passed through an area with a high concentrated density of toxic gas in the water. The ship's crew would keep inhaling this gas slowly until it begins to affect their minds, and they would fall into a delusion, and that is when they would start jumping off the ship on their own. This explanation to me is also incorrect because keep in mind that the lifeboats were not in their place. And even the life jackets were not in their place, meaning someone took them, lowered them, got in, and left with them. So the possibility that they jumped into the sea is a wrong assumption. The logical possibility to me is that there is indeed poisonous gas in the ocean, and the crew smelt this gas, and they felt they didn't have enough time, S-Z, so they quickly left the ship and boarded the lifeboats that lowered them into the sea and quickly moved away from the area that had the deadly gas. This explains why they left the breakfast table behind set and ready. And naturally, because they left in such a hurry, they left behind their bags and personal belongings. If you tell me they'll show up now, I'll tell you that this exact idea was thought of by the American investigation team, and they said they'll show up, let's wait a little while. They waited a week, they waited a month, 2 months, 2 years, 2.5 years, and the crew didn't appear and had no trace. After exactly 2.5 years of investigation, America officially closed this file forever and left it as an unsolved case. There is an investigator who was on the team who said, literally, in my 40 years of work, I have never seen a case like this. Something happened on that ship that cannot be explained by any human logic. This investigator and other investigators assumed that something non-human happened to that ship. Because, in short, they couldn't find a logical explanation. The story is very complex, and it has no path we can follow. It has no starting point we can rely on. 3 years after the disappearance of the crew in 1924, American authorities decided to blow up the ship in the middle of the sea forever. A ship. Why did they take this decision? Honestly, I don't know why. But they likely felt their own weakness in the face of this case. and they couldn't find an explanation for it. That's why they wanted to arrange the case forever. So they brought the ship and placed it in the middle of the sea, and it was detonated, and it sank to the bottom of the ocean forever, and it took with it a secret that has no explanation. To this day, more than 100 years after the ship's crew disappeared, the whole world still hasn't found answers to their questions. Who broke the compass and the navigation equipment? Or, why was the food on the table? And why was the coffee on the stove? Where did the lifeboats go? Why wasn't the cargo stolen from the ship? Why were the cruise supplies and personal belongings still on the ship in their place? And the final question, who is the person the lighthouse keeper saw with his binoculars on it and appeared to him on the ship? And he felt something was wrong because he wasn't wearing the ship's cruise clothes. Was it just a coincidence that he saw him not wearing the cruise clothes? Was he changing them, or was it someone else who had nothing to do with the ship's crew? And to this day, in 2026, there is still no logical explanation supported by concrete evidence. Where is the crew, and where did they go? This incident makes us feel the power and terror of the sea. The information we currently have about seas and oceans is considered very little compared to the mysteries that exist in the sea and the mysteries at the bottom of the oceans. Always keep in mind that what is hidden is even greater. To this day, with all the technology and progress humanity has reached so far, this mystery still has no explanation and no solution. The 11 crew members of the Carol ship have disappeared without a trace to this day.